dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And you're back on Liberty Nation Radio. I remain your host, Mark Angelides, and we're continuing our long-form conversation with Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor, man about town, Mr. Scott D. Cosenza, Esquire. Scott, thanks for sticking around. Now, earlier in the show, we talked about the Office of Civil Rights within the Department of Justice being told by Donald Trump, essentially, to start going after violation of gun rights of Americans, the right to keep and bear arms. And on a similar but dissimilar topic, I want to talk to you about a theory you have, which I find it's novel, it's fascinating, about how Donald Trump can make inroads for the next, if it's a Republican administration, with Black Americans. And I think it's quite fascinating.
I think it would be a political win for Trump and anybody who is on his agenda, I guess, or linked up with him as a candidate. And it's within the Office of Civil Rights that this could be done. You know, there was a Saturday Night Live skit. I'm trying to remember how long ago it was, but with Tom Hanks, and he played a MAGA guy. And it was the similarities between like a MAGA guy and a black person in the ghetto who had like certain views about government, and how they were both skeptical of government in similar ways, and how there was some commonality there. And that's not what motivated my my thought here, but I think it's an interesting.
Scott Cosenza making policy based on what he sees on Saturday Night Live, just like Joe Biden does.
You know, if you pay attention to the sort of limited government types, the gun rights types, and I do, they are very skeptical of government power and oftentimes the recipient of abuses from authorities. We see it all the time in gun hostile places where they use the laws to not punish actual, what we would think of as sort of classic criminality. We call common law crimes, crimes of violence, but paperwork crimes designed to trip somebody up, for instance, because of the hostility to whatever right they're trying to express. Well, there's also, you'll see, if you look at social media, the instances of police abuse, oftentimes in urban areas, are too numerous to even catalog, really. And I'm talking about sort of standard violations of civil rights that are basically people getting searched without cause, those kinds of abuses that it's sort of like the stop and frisk thing. If you think of that, okay, so stop and frisk was a way that the Giuliani administration used to basically stop a bunch of black and brown men without probable cause. And one of the reasons why they were able to do so was because they didn't have sufficient pushback from the Justice Department. And so what happened was thousands and thousands and thousands of New Yorkers were set upon by the police. Now, it's a bit of a tricky situation because Trump, of course, enjoys widespread, massive support from law and order style. People who vote with that as a top of mind. If we can use a term,
can we just the Biden administration is over. It was a mistake that he made because he couldn't complete a full sentence, and then Jen Psaki and others decided to jump in and start saying this is something that is top of mind to cover up the fact that Joe Biden couldn't complete a full sentence, and now everybody's using it.
And it sounds to American ears like a British saying for some reason as well.
Not in the slightest.
No, but it does. It totally does.
Sorry, it's continue.
Yeah.
With your top of mind theory.
So
there's a segment
for people who are motivated by that safety and security concern, Trump has been, I think, their definite go-to rather than, and it could be rough to kind of challenge that notion. But as Tim Donner, the former host of this show, likes to say, there's nothing better than a good cop and nothing worse than a bad cop. And these police officers that do regularly violate the civil rights of Americans, they are basically left to run wild by the Justice Department. Now, I'm not talking about police officers who shoot and kill some unarmed person or something like that. That kind of behavior already receives a significant amount of attention. I'm talking about the lesser cases that create a culture of police unaccountability and a kind of gang blue versus them attitude and environment, which is the case right now in so many big cities in America, that it's, they do not have a good relationship with the police because of the lack of accountability. And this is all tied in with union contracts in the cities. There's a famous instance where Ed Rendell, the former mayor of Philadelphia, was in an unguarded moment with a reporter during the time when a police review investigation came in. And he said that he was going to dismiss the police officer. And he mentioned to somebody as he was saying this that he knew they were going to be forced to rehire them because of the union contract. So it was a political game they were playing about bad police behavior. And that's done, I think that's de rigueur for political leadership in our country. So Trump or another president could put a stop to that. And I think that this is one of those areas where there would be crossover. The limited government gun rights types, and those are streams that I kind of swim in regularly. So I have a finely tuned antenna on what plays there. I think would be highly welcome of this kind of an impetus, like more expansion into civil rights and rebuffing police officers' imposition on those rights. I sometimes watch these protest videos where you'll see police officers shining a bright flashlight into the cameras of people that are critical of the police and monitoring them. That's a violation of civil rights. They're blinding the people because of them trying to capture content that's critical of police. But we don't see that as nobody's making a quote unquote federal case out of that now, as it were. And that is the thing I'm arguing for. This kind of full court press for police officers to respect the civil rights of motorists, pedestrians, basically all Americans. And the bleeding edge of that imposition is often in poor places where there's sort of less direct political will expressed through the electorate.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, but the places where these violations of civil rights take place, don't they tend to be higher crime areas where the right now, there's obviously never any good excuse for violating someone's rights. But as you pointed out, this was largely brought to public attention during Mayor Giuliani's time. But crime did massively go down under Giuliani, and so you've got this huge chunk of law-abiding Americans who aren't being victimized anymore because of that. And I think
your cause and effect analysis is not actually accurate. Just so you're aware, I want to place an objection into the record. Rudolph Giuliani did not lower crime in New York.
Okay,
and
crime
down. And if you look at crime in other cities in America during that time, you'll find a similar and significant decrease. I'm not saying that nothing he did had an impact. But also, I would hasten to add this to the conversation. If, Mark, you think that we should have a reduced standard of Fourth Amendment rights in high crime areas, then that's something the Constitution can be amended to include. You should have to draft constitutional language that says in high crime areas, defined however you please, we're going to have a reduced standard that people aren't free from government imposition into their homes and their private papers and their persons, absent a showing of probable cause, which is the current requirement, whether we're in a high crime area or a low crime area. The Constitution requires that of law enforcement. And through the incorporation of the Fourth Amendment against the states, that is something the Supreme Court has said all police must have against all people. Now, you seem to be arguing for a different standard because it made a good effort or good result.
That's not my position, Scott.
In Giuliani's New York.
hang on, Scott. My position here is that you're making the case that this would be a benefit to either a Donald Trump campaign, obviously he doesn't have another campaign going, but a future Republican administration. What I'm saying is that there are enough people that, so let's say, for example, there's an inner city, a black or brown people who are more in tune with Donald Trump or the Republican Party because of, cracking down on the infringements on civil liberties. And also there's another subsect of people who are very limited government enthusiasts who would also go for the more Republican candidate because that's a continuation and it's stopping the suppression of civil liberties. What I'm arguing is that there might be more people who think without these infringements, crime's going to be worse, more people are going to die, and therefore I would actually prefer someone who is strictly law and order. And of course, that law and order is, as you point out, going to include violations of civil rights, which is why there should always be a civil rights office within the Department of Justice cracking down on these. But my contention is that there are probably more people who would rather not be victimized than have a few people stopped and searched. And I think the one outweighs the other. That's my position.
I appreciate that. I just disagree with you. And I imagine that the imposition by the police is felt in these places. So let's just take Baltimore, not too far from where I am, that is beset by violence and also beset by police officers who are completely and totally out of control if we look at instances of police abuse.
Sure.
Now, there are many, many, many fine police officers. And I mean, even look at the way I have to kind of say that just to even discuss the issue. Like, it's preposterous that there wouldn't be, with however many, I'm sure thousands of people that are in that organization. But the political realities mean that those who are not the good officers get to stay and do so much damage. And the overall thrust of my argument for a federal change at the federal level for any president who wants to pick up those pieces, I think, is they could have enforcement and say, they could steal Tim's line right in the press conference. Nothing better than a good cop, nothing worse than a bad cop. And what are we going to do about these bad cops? Well, right now, we're not doing much federally about bad cops, really almost nothing. And I think my argument is, let's stop with the idea that to go after bad cops is to attack police. A more nuanced attack on it can be seen as buoying Americans' civil rights, lifting them up and protecting them. And where will that be seen and felt the most? I think in the places where the most political benefit can be. That was the point of bringing it up, is that it's sort of a twofer. You get this, gun nuts get to have, more protections, right? And also the political win. But for a Donald Trump-like candidate, there's not a whole lot of extra he's going to get from the gun nuts in terms of votes, probably. But if he can turn populations that have historically voted almost exclusively for Democrats, well, then that's a big difference, politically speaking.
It's a good case. It's a good case, and it's been argued well, Councillor. We'll be back with Scott after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.